Time with children. How are you doing, Lily? Oh, that's great. I'm doing fine. It's 2020. I'm alive. I want to tell you guys a story this morning. And it's a story about forgiveness. Yeah, what's forgiveness? What do you mean when anybody knows?
Yeah, the act of forgiving.
The act of forgiving. She's so bright. Hey, here comes my friend. I thought you weren't here today. It's good to see you. Hey, nice. And so, forgiving, let me break it down real simple for you, is when somebody does something bad to you or against you or, and you decide you're going to let it go and say, okay, it's okay. I'll let it go, and so you don't hold it against them anymore. It could be an action, it could be something they did to you, it could be something bad. But this story is about a king. And so a king was on his throne, and while he was there, being king and all of that, everything was doing good. Now, let me tell you, he was a very good and wise king. But what had happened was, there were some persons out there, different farmers who were having problems. And so while the farmers were having problems, right, they ran into a little financial problem. They needed money to buy seeds to plant for their crops. And so the king decided, you know what? I'm going to help these farmers. So he gave them a loan. Oh, this is one of the grown-up words. You shall know it when you get older. It's called a loan. And so a loan is you lend people money. I take out $5 and I say, Lily, here, this is $5 to go buy something. But you must return it because it's just a loan. So I lend it to her. Huh?
A loan is basically you're going to lend someone borrow money.
Yeah, and they need to do what?
And then they repay you.
High five. Better repay me. Lily, you owe me $5. So what happened was the farmer lent some persons money and for them, and all of the persons who they lent the money came back and paid and thanked the king and said, wonderful king, now my farm is doing good. All the money that I borrowed from you, I planted and I got back my things from the farm, and here's back your money and everything is looking good. So the king was happy. So he decided to check the list going down. Lily paid, Josh paid, and he kept on doing, Buddy paid, everybody, you paid, everybody paid. And he was ticking the list going off. And then he came to a name. He was like, wait a minute, this person did not pay. So there was this one farmer who never paid back his loan. So he called the farmer in and said, what happened? The crop season has already passed. Everybody else came and paid their loan. Where is your money? And he's like, oh, king, have mercy on me. King, have mercy. Please have mercy. I used the money to feed my family because we didn't have anything. And then the wheel fell off the wagon and I had to buy a new wheel. And he was giving all sorts of excuses why he couldn't repay the loan. So the king said, oh my, this is bad. And so the king said, I am going to forgive you of the loan. He says, I'm going to just let it go. Since you're going through such a rough time, I'm going to let it go. See, I'm crossing your name off the list. You don't owe me anything anymore. And he was like, oh, king, thank you, I'll never forget this. As long as I live, I'll never forget this. Anyway, a few weeks passed by, and the king went, and usually this king, as I said, is a very good king, and he walked and decided he was going to visit the dungeon. You know what the dungeon is? Nobody knows? Anybody else? All right, Josh, I'll give you this one. Yeah, it's the deepest, darkest part of the prison. And so the king hardly goes down there, but he went down there and he started to talk to the persons in there. And he's like, why are you in the dungeon? And And this person told him, why are you in the dungeon? And he told them what happened. So he saw this other guy and he's like, why are you in the dungeon? He's like, well, I'm a farmer and things weren't going so well. And one day I needed some pig feed. So I went to my neighbor next door and I borrowed a little bit of money from him to buy a bag of feed. And he asked me to give him back the next day. I told him I'd give him back the next week. And he says he can't wait till the next week. And he put me in jail. And the king said, you're in jail? In the dungeon? For a bag of pig feed? And he's like, yeah. He's like, he told the guards, bring this case up in front of me in the courthouse and let me see what happened. And so the case was called before the king. And when the case was called before the king, the farmer that had the money for the bag of feed, the king had already given him the money to pay off the debt. And so he's like, who is the one here that is accusing him for the bag of feed? Would you believe it? Guess who it was?
The guy that he loaned.
It was the same guy that the king had written off his debt for. The same guy that did not pay off the farmer's loan. And he was on the guy for a bag of pig feed. And the king said, it's you. And he's like, yes, merciful and gracious and kind king. Trying to butter up the king. And the king says, why did you put this man in jail for a bag of pig feed? And he says, well, he didn't pay me, so I had to lock him up. The king said, oh my, so you don't believe that you should forgive others? When you wanted forgiveness, I gave it to you. And he was like, but, the king says, well, so you can learn the difference to have mercy and forgive others. I'm putting your name back on the list. Take him to the dungeon. And he told the other man, give him the money for the pig feed. And the king said, I hope you can spend it while you're in the dungeon. What I want you guys to learn from this story is everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does something wrong. And in 2020, if you make a mistake, remember this, you're going to want forgiveness. And so if you did something wrong, you want somebody to forgive you. But don't forget when someone does something wrong to you, you need to forgive them. And that's what I want you guys to take into 2020. Forgive other persons just like how they will forgive you. And that's children's time for today.